Sunshine State, where the nerds play. There's a YouTuber who's leading the way. Yeah. He's got a passion for all things nerdy. Dungeons and Dragons, his world's not blurry. From comics to movies, he's got it all. He's an Outpost Nerd living in a geeky world with his lightsaber shining. He's a Star Wars swirl through galaxies and adventures. He'll take you there, take you there. He's an Outpost Nerd, no one can compare. Nerd power. Yeah, he's the king of nerds, catching out there.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another transmission from the Outpost. I'm the nerd of the Outpost, and welcome. How's everybody doing? See, tonight I'm going to be starting a new, in what I hope is a series entitled RPG Nightmares. You know, kind of people sharing their hard times at the table, moments that ruin their games, and I thought I'd share them. So let's get started. Let me bring the first one up. And this is one really that I have really disdain for. So let's get right into it. Hope everyone's having a good night, good Saturday night. See, this one, okay, this is from the Reddit RPG Horror Stories, which I absolutely love. One of my favorite discords. It's called Players Doesn't Stop Talking. Player Doesn't Stop Talking. This is from a Discord campaign in 2021. And, you know, Discord games have really become commonplace over the last few years. The group were all friendly and nice people, including this player, which made this difficult. The player in question would talk for what would feel like 40% of the session. This in a group of 5. In online games, I feel like there is an etiquette that you say what you want to say, then pass the ball on so other players know you're done. This stops people from accidentally talking over one another, interruptions, etc. It's a skill you learn pretty early in remote meetings, but this player would just keep talking slowly without pause, with no polite way for anyone to interject. If you tried to move things forward in increasingly less subtle ways, he would listen and then just resume where he left off. I think part of the problem was the player suffered from over-analyzing and trying to over-prepare for each situation. I've done this too, but he did this in real time without continuing nonstop. On multiple occasions, he would be presented with an encounter, and I think to myself, cool, we've got 90 minutes left. We should make decent progress. Nope. This player would proceed to talk and plan every detail, and we'd make zero progress that session. I almost felt like he was filibustering the session so that things would happen at the speed he wanted. Over the course of the session, before he went on holiday, he suddenly wanted to move things along quickly. The session he always felt like warp speed in comparison. I spoke to the DM about it. He spoke to the player. It maybe improved for a session and then went back to the usual. This campaign ended permanently, and that was that. Yeah, I've ran into this situation a few times. I've had players who want to just chit chat. You know, table talk is really a hard thing to deal with when you're trying to play a game, when you're trying to be engrossed in it. So And over analyzing to me is just as bad as over preparing. I mean, under preparing. Just come to the table and let the game flow. Go where the dice takes you. You know, just have fun. This player sounded like they just couldn't let loose. They couldn't just have fun, and that's what I think a lot of people want to do at D&D is just, or any tabletop game, not just D&D, is just go with the flow, just go where the dice takes you. That's one thing I've always wanted to do on games, but I've had players that would just sit there and talk and chat, and it was really distracting for not just the other players, but also the DM. So I think this player that this person was talking about really just needed to relax. So it's part of the tabletop RPG experience is letting go, getting out of your skin, being what you always wanted to be. You being anything you want to be. And that goes into this next story, which we've heard about the topic of this story recently over the past year or two, with people breaking the fantasy of tabletop RPGs, fantasy worlds, and interjecting real world issues into it in a way that, yes, when you can interject issues that can be in a fun way, an interesting way that you learn from, that you can really make you think. But when it's blatant like this, that upcoming story, it can be annoying and really, what's the word? Really make other players uncomfortable. So, this is an exact example. If I was writing a table and this happened, I don't know, I'd have to talk with the player. This short's called "What Race Is Your Orc?" Again, it's another online game. I was in an online one-shot adventure, was finishing describing my character, an orc ranger, when another player, let's just call him that guy, asked me this, and we've all ran into that guy. Me, he's an orc. I think I mentioned this. Guy. No, like, what color is he? Me, well, a grayish, light bluish sort of color, typical orc color. Guy, getting annoyed. Stop playing dumb. You know what I mean. God, this kind of guy. Like I said, this guy. Is he black, white, Asian, Indian, or what? I was speechless. I said orc, but he just got more annoyed. That guy was absolutely insistent about having a world ethnicity to assign to my non-human fantasy character. I love this response. I eventually said Mongolian just to shut him up. This isn't much of a horror story. The game was actually fine. That guy aside, but what race is your orc guy is going to live rent-free in my head for a long time. Yeah, like I said, this was just blatantly inserting real world issues into it. And what made this even worse is it wasn't even that guy's character. That guy was trying to take control of another player's character. You don't do that in a tabletop RPG setting or any RPG setting. You're taking someone's creative control over what they made away from them in a way that is just so outright disrespectful. It is horrible when a person thinks, I know better about your character than you do. And it's I'm glad that this person was able to move on and 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 keep playing with that guy. It was really rude and improper tabletop etiquette to do what that guy did. Like I said, you don't take control over someone's character like that. Now, my next and final story, I'm going to keep these shows to maybe about 3 or 4 stories at a time. Keep it short, to keep it happens. I think it happens all the time, but we're really seeing it being very prominent, especially in the last few years, where the company Wizards of the Coast and D&D themselves are really getting behind inserting these issues into a game where at one time it was just, here are the guidelines. It's called it's called a handbook instead of a rule book for a reason. And that's why I think D&D has lasted so long. It's lasted almost over 40 years, because you have such freedom. You can do anything. You can create worlds or flying mountains or upside down oceans. You can do anything. And then when you have all these issues that you're trying to escape from being forced into it, it can really be disheartening. It can really, it takes you back to the places you're trying to escape from. And it's it can ruin for disconnect. You said what you just posted is a perfect segue to my final story. This D&D can make players for life. It can create such great memories for people. I remember my first character, my first game I ever played. Was a few years. I started D&D very late. I started probably about 5 or 6 years ago. My first character, I love him. He's awesome. His name, he was a halfling assassin. I'm not going to tell his name. I'm going to save that for. He was a halfling assassin who saw his job, being an assassin, as a service to the community. Almost like in his mind, he saw it as not unlike a blacksmith or a baker. He saw it as an important job. And so he would take a perfect example of creating a character and not molding the character to what you want, but seeing where the character takes you. I found we did it was an evil campaign called The Hunting of Vox Machina. That was so much fun. I was part of a group that was hired to hunt down the Critical Role Campaign 1 adventuring party of Vox Machina. You had all sorts. You had Grog the Barbarian, Tarian the Human Artificer, uh, Percy, the gunfighter, um, uh, Vex, Vex, the ranger. We would. It was our D&D's first time DMing, so he was a little nervous. But what we did is each session was about in game time was about a year apart in game time, and we come back and say, what did you do preparing for this big battle during the year? And I found my character, he would play mind games with people. The very first session we did, and we started at level 10, and each session we raise up about 2 levels. So we got 3 sessions in before a TPK. So we were about 15, 16, level 15 or 16 by the end. And our very first session, it was my first session ever playing D&D. We were fighting Grog the Barbarian, and I got the final kill. I got the how do you want to do this, which of course every critter longs to hear the DM look at them and say, how do you want to do this? You describe how you do your killing blow. And what I did is my character had twin daggers. I used them as scissors to cut off Grog's head and stick it on a pike in the middle of a arena for everyone to see. Because I'm like, Colvin would know, my character, Colvin, would know that a battle would start before you got into the fight. You had to get in the player's head. We fought Grog and Tarian the Artificer. And then we moved on to Percy and Vex. We moved on to Percy and Vex, and my character had infiltrated their castle, and he used a disguise kit to pose as a butler, and got close to Vex. He became close, but he was gathering information for the fight ahead. He knew was coming. So I tell the young DM that's what he did, and then we get together as a party and we're sneaking into the castle. Now, if you know anything about Critical Role, the town is called Whitestone, where Percy family rule, and they have this huge tree planted by one of their gods. And we were sneaking in. We were almost into the castle before our druid cast blight on this holy tree, alerting the entire city guard that were armed with guns. Now, because Percy in this D&D setting created guns, so he armed his city guard with guns. This was before the Tal'Dorei campaign setting came out, and we were fighting. And I remember Vex was on her broom, flying. That's what she did. She was a ranger who would fly on her broom and just shoot. And I remember I changed my face into the face I had been disguised as, and I remember it threw her off, and he rolled something with a disadvantage, and we were able to kill her. But with so many city guards and Percy with his guns, after like 3 hours of fighting, and half the party already dead at this point, the DM looks at us and says, there's no mathematical way that you can win this. So my character had his head blown off by Percy. And I hope I can meet Talos and Jaffe and tell him this story, because it was so much fun playing not necessarily a bad guy, but a guy who did bad things for good reasons. He really liked playing with the minds, and that's one reason I changed my character. My character would change his face and showed Vex like that. My next story, it build friendships, but if done wrong, it can ruin friendships too. And here's my final story for the night. It's a little long one, But this is just insane. It says player ruins 9-year friendship with DM over love confession. Now, I read this earlier thinking, and I think the writer is a woman who is a girl who girlfriend was going through this. It says, my girlfriend has recently started DMing a homebrew Pathfinder 2nd edition game for our usual D&D group, which consists of 5 people plus myself. However, she decided to invite a friend of hers whom she's known for 9 years to the table. I met this person a couple of times. He seemed super nice and chill, and we were all excited to add something else to our party. First session rolls around, and this friend who is playing a mage helps an NPC in distress. The NPC thanks him, and then the two engage in a bit of half-hearted flirting. It's heavily implied that this NPC is not a good person, a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of deal. And we all move on from the moment. I think, however, that this player could not move on from it because after our second session, my girlfriend received a slew of strange and vague texts from the mage asking to meet her for coffee the next day. My girlfriend couldn't meet her friend until a few days later, and when she finally did, she was absolutely floored. This man had gotten her a bouquet of flowers and chocolates. His opening line to her when they met was something vaguely sexual that really put my girlfriend off. And of course, there was a love confession. Oh boy, that's crazy. Apparently, he had been harboring this crush since they met 9 years ago. Good Lord, man. She told him that she couldn't, that she was already in a relationship with me and incredibly happy. As an olive branch and distressed that she wanted to be friends, she still got coffee with him. Apparently, he kept asking her if she truly was happy and lamented about how it wasn't the right time to tell her. She expressed again that she was committed to me and happy with me, and that she still wanted to be friends, and she also hoped that this didn't affect D&D either. He ended up leaving our game server after they parted ways and hasn't spoken to any of us since. Both she and I are absolutely baffled by this whole ordeal. Our relationship was not a secret by any means. She talked to me about this person a lot and expressed how happy she was, and even introduced me as her girlfriend the first time I met up with her friend. In the game, there's an NPC that flirts with my character, and it's implied that they have a thing going on behind closed doors. Neither of us are sure in what world this man thought my girlfriend was going to automatically leave me for him. I do think, however, he viewed being part of this game, plus the small interaction with that NPC, as an invitation of sorts. But he will not be invited back to our table, and my girlfriend will be giving him his character and unceremoniously exit from the game. Wow. This is crazy. This story was crazy. One thing about having relationships in game, the first thing you need to do is you need to ask the parties involved how they feel. And even if you have a DM who's married to one of your players, you need to go to the DM and explain to them, this is what I want to do. I want my character to have a relationship with your spouse's character. How do you feel about this kind of relationship going on? The flirting that will be happening, that your spouse will be doing with another person. It's all about the game. Games should also be played away from the table. These kind of interactions need to be discussed before. You don't do this kind of thing because other people will be uncomfortable if sometimes sometimes people will be uncomfortable with this. Sometimes people just want to play the hack and slash murder hobo kind of character. They don't want to be romanced in D&D. You need to set boundaries with these characters, with your characters in these games. And this guy, I think, from the description that the author gave, really needed to be set down and explained beforehand how these interactions and relationships work at the table. And apparently it says that I'm guessing this player, it was their first time at a tabletop game like that. So I could see the mistakes on that person's side, but I also see the DM's mistake that they needed to really needed to set. But like I said, communication is all that needed to be done. I think this player really looked too much into it. So it seems like I've seen this at tables too, where you can't disconnect those feelings that your character has from real life. It kind of bleeds together. So, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the show. I seem to be having technical issues. So I will. I think I'm going to call it a night. This will be. I'm going to try to make this a series. Like I said, I'm going to try to find 3 or 4 stories like these that and share them and my views on them and how maybe they could have been fixed, or what could have been done to so like, subscribe, share, and this is the Outpost Nerd signing off. I'm gone.